Aliens stunned. The real reason humans were banned from galactic wars revealed. Part 1. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with tension. Tall, slender beings with skin colors ranging from deep purple to luminous gold filled the chamber. Some floated above the ground. Others stood on multiple legs, and a few appeared as nothing more than shimmering clouds of light. At the center of it all stood a single human, Tom Reed, Earth's ambassador, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "The motion carries unanimously," announced High Counselor Zixtara, her voice echoing through the vast chamber, her forearms raised dramatically as she spoke. "As of this solar cycle, all humans are hereby forbidden from participating in any and all interstellar military conflicts, peacekeeping operations, or armed interventions within Galactic Alliance territory." Tom's face flushed red. He'd been expecting some restrictions, maybe even sanctions after what happened in the Orion cluster, but a complete ban. His hands trembled slightly as 17 alien representatives approached the central platform to sign the glowing declaration. "Ambassador Reed," purred Councillor Vexnor, a feline-like being whose silver fur rippled with barely contained emotion, "your species' presence is still welcomed in all cultural, scientific, and commercial endeavors. This is not a punishment, but a safety measure." Tom forced a smile. 30 years since we figured out faster-than-light travel, and you're already banning us from your wars. I can't decide if that's an insult or a compliment." The council chamber fell silent. The concept of humor during official proceedings was yet another baffling human trait. News of the ban spread faster than light itself across the 1,000 inhabited worlds. On the mining colony of Rigel 9, humans working alongside draconian laborers found themselves suddenly treated with a mixture of fear and awe. "Is it true your kind took down a Kronos warship with just mining explosives?" asked Dreltar, a young draconian whose scales hadn't yet hardened to their adult metallic sheen. Li Wei, the human foreman, just shrugged. "We did what we had to, wouldn't you?" Back on Earth, the public reaction split between outrage and pride. Street vendors sold T-shirts reading "Too Scary for Space" within hours of the announcement. In a small diner in New Delhi, 2 off-duty pilots watched the news broadcast on a floating holographic display. "Seems excessive for a species that's barely left its own solar system," said Anya, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "What are they so afraid of?" Her companion Raj leaned back in his chair. "Remember what happened when those pirates hit our colony? I was there. The aliens don't fight like we do, They have rules, formations. We just do whatever works." Meanwhile, in the secretive inner chambers of the council, debates raged. The Tellurian ambassador, a being composed of living crystal, chimed melodically as it spoke. "The humans have been spacefaring for a mere 3 decades. Their technology is centuries behind most of our member species. This ban is absurd." "It is not their technology that concerns us," replied the ancient Vordax representative, its gelatinous body pulsing with each word. "It is what they do with it. Did you read the classified report from Proxima Centauri? Or what their mercenaries accomplished in the Thracian conflict? They don't just break the rules of engagement, they don't even understand why those rules exist." As the night cycle began on the council station, Tom Reed stood alone at a viewing portal watching the stars. A message from Earth High Command blinked on his personal device. What did we do to scare them so badly? Tom smiled slightly. That was exactly what he intended to find out. Aliens stunned. The real reason humans were banned from galactic wars. Revealed. Part 3, the red dwarf star of Proxima Centauri, cast an eerie crimson glow over the landscape as alarms blared throughout the mining colony. Dust-covered workers emerged from their shifts to find 3 pirate vessels descending through the thin atmosphere, their weapons already firing warning shots that lit up the protective dome. "Those are Krell raiders," gasped Colony Director Prisha. Patel, recognizing the distinctive spike-shaped ships. "They hit the Arcturus station last month, no survivors." The colony's security officer, a former military man named Jack Wilson, grabbed the emergency comm unit. "Alliance Defense Force, this is Proxima Colony. We are under attack by what appear to be Krell pirates, requesting immediate assistance." The reply came back almost instantly. Human colony. This is Commander Zex Voral of the Alliance 7th. Fleet, we have detected the hostile vessels and are dispatching rescue units. Estimated arrival 4 hours. Standard protocol is full surrender to prevent loss of life. Repeat, do not engage the raiders. Jack looked at Prisha, both of them knowing what full surrender meant when it came to Krell pirates. The colony stripped bare, the people taken as slaves or worse. 4 hours, Prisha muttered. We'll be long dead or gone by then. Jack's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the frightened faces around him. Maybe not. Hey, Rajiv, he called to the lead mining engineer. Those new excavators, the ones with the key plasma drills for cutting through the hard bedrock. How many do we have? Rajiv's eyes widened as he caught Jack's meaning. 6 operational units, but those aren't weapons, they're mining equipment. They're tools with power sources that can be overclocked, Jack replied. And anything that cuts through rock can cut through a ship's hull. He turned to address the gathered colonists. Listen up. I need volunteers who can drive those excavators. And I need everyone else to start rigging up anything we can use for defense. What followed was a flurry of activity that would later baffle Alliance military analysts. Miners disconnected safety regulators from plasma drills, increasing their cutting power tenfold at the risk of catastrophic overload. Others repurposed atmospheric processors to create localized pressure differentials, essentially air cannons powerful enough to knock a Krell off its feet. The colony's geologist, Anna Novak, suggested they could use the seismic charges meant for survey work as makeshift explosives. If we concentrate them here and here, she pointed to a terrain map, we can create a funnel effect, forcing them to approach from only one direction. When the first Krell landing craft touched down, they expected to find terrified, helpless colonists. Instead, they encountered a hastily organized defense force using mining equipment in ways that violated every safety protocol in the Alliance handbook. 2 hours later, when the Alliance rescue fleet finally arrived, they found a shocking scene. 2 pirate vessels destroyed, 1 retreating into space, and humans celebrating their victory while casually extinguishing various fires around their damaged but intact colony. Commander Zex Voral, a veteran of 16 major conflicts, stared in disbelief at the aftermath. A mining excavator had been driven straight into a pirate ship's hull, its plasma drill burning a hole large enough for colonists to throw improvised explosives inside. Another raider had been disabled when colonists overloaded the colony's communication array to create an electromagnetic pulse that fried the ship's systems. This is irregular, the commander managed to say as Jack Wilson gave him a tour of the battlefield. We did what we had to, Jack shrugged. Those raiders didn't give us much choice. Later, in his private quarters aboard the Alliance vessel, Zex Voral drafted his report with trembling appendages. His final assessment read, "The human colonists displayed behavior consistent with trained military units despite having no formal combat training. They instinctively militarized civilian equipment, abandoned safety measures without hesitation, and coordinated complex defensive strategies with minimal preparation time. Most concerning, they exhibited no signs of the fear response that typically limits aggressive action in civilian populations. Recommend immediate review of human settlement permits in border regions." As an afterthought, he added, "It appears humans become instinctively militaristic in crisis situations. The implications of this characteristic warrant further study." The report was immediately classified at the highest level by Alliance Command. Aliens stunned. The real reason. Humans were banned from Galactic Wars revealed. Part 4, The Massive. Thracian warship Eternal Glory drifted silently above Earth's moon, its hull decorated with battle scars from centuries of conflict. Inside, Admiral Krazathar drummed his 4-fingered hands impatiently on the conference table as he waited for the human representatives to arrive. "This is beneath us," hissed his second-in-command. "Seeking help from primitives who barely understand gravitic propulsion." "We've lost 16 systems in the past decade," Krazathar replied grimly. "The High Command is desperate enough to try anything." When the human delegation finally entered, led by retired Special Forces Colonel David Way, the Thracians were unimpressed. by their plain uniforms and lack of ceremonial weapons. Wei didn't waste time on formalities. "Your war with the Novan Collective has lasted 300 years, he said, studying the holographic battle maps floating above the table. "You're losing because your tactics haven't evolved, but theirs have." The Thracian officers bristled at this bluntness, but Wei continued, pointing to various conflict zones. "We've reviewed your recent engagements. Your ships are powerful, but you move them like pieces on a chessboard. Predictable patterns, formal engagements, set-piece battles. We can help change that." 2 weeks later, 500 human veterans from various Earth militaries arrived at the Thracian forward base on Cygnus 4. The Thracians assigned them to support roles, communications, logistics, base security, expecting little actual combat contribution from a species with such limited space warfare experience. In their off-duty hours, the humans gathered in their barracks to study. They pored over Earth's military history, from ancient guerrilla campaigns to modern asymmetric warfare, looking for principles that could apply to space combat. "The Thracians fight like 18th-century naval fleets," observed Layla Hassan, a former drone pilot from the East African Federation. "They form lines. They exchange broadsides. They retreat when damaged. It's also formal." Wei nodded. "They've been fighting the same enemy so long they've developed rules, unspoken agreements, lines they won't cross. But we haven't agreed to anything," smiled Pavel Sokolov, examining the schematics of a Thracian light cruiser. "And history shows that rigid military doctrine always breaks against the unexpected. Their chance came sooner than anticipated. The Novan fleet launched a surprise offensive against Cygnus 4, catching the main Thracian battle group out of position. With only a defensive flotilla remaining, the base commander reluctantly allowed Wei's humans to join the emergency response. The Thracians expected them to follow standard protocols. They didn't. Instead of forming up with the defensive line, the human-piloted ships scattered in seemingly random patterns. They powered down all non-essential systems to reduce their sensor profiles and drifted with minimal life support, playing dead or hiding in debris fields. They modified communication buoys to broadcast false fleet signatures, creating phantom ships that confused Novan targeting systems. "What are they doing?" demanded the Thracian commander as he watched the tactical display. "They're breaking formation. They'll be destroyed individually." But destruction didn't come. Instead, the hidden human ships waited until the Novan fleet committed to their attack run on the main Thracian line, then struck from behind and below. Attack vectors the Novans had left undefended for centuries according to unspoken combat norms. When the main Thracian fleet finally arrived, they found the Novan attack force in disarray, picked apart by hit-and-run attacks from ships that refused to engage in proper combat. In the weeks that followed, Wei's team expanded their unconventional approach. They retrofitted cargo haulers, with minimal weapons but powerful engines, using them as high-speed ramming vessels controlled remotely. They deployed mining explosives in asteroid fields, then lured enemy ships into the trap. They even broadcast falsified distress calls in Novan frequencies to create confusion during battles. Within 3 months, the Thracian Human Task Force had pushed the Novan Collective back farther than the Thracians had managed in the previous 50 years. "Your methods are disturbing," admitted Admiral Krasithar during the victory celebration. "Effective but disturbing." Wei raised his glass of Thracian spark wine. "On Earth we have a saying, all's fair in love and war." The Admiral's translator struggled with the concept before simply displaying an error message. After 6 months, the human mercenaries returned to Earth as heroes, their pockets filled with Thracian payment crystals. They remained completely unaware that their actions had triggered emergency sessions of the Galactic Council's Military Affairs Committee. They turned a centuries-old conflict upside down in less than a standard year, reported the committee, chair to a closed session, not through superior technology or resources, but simply by ignoring every established convention of interstellar combat. If these humans ever decide to wage war for themselves, rather than as mercenaries for others, the committee didn't need to finish the thought. Every being present understood the implications all too well. Aliens stunned. The real reason, humans, were banned from Galactic Wars revealed Part 5 deep within the sprawling complex of the Galactic Council's Science Division, in a section few knew existed, the xenopsychology team gathered around a holographic display showing footage from various human conflicts. The room's occupants represented some of the most brilliant minds from a dozen species, all focused on understanding the puzzle that was human combat psychology. "Play the Proxima Centauri defense again," instructed Dr. Zelthran, the team's lead researcher. His blue-gray skin rippled with concern as he watched the mining colonists transform from peaceful workers into effective warriors in a matter of minutes. His assistant, Mira, one of the few humans allowed on the research team, shifted uncomfortably as her colleagues studied her species like a dangerous virus. "Note how their coordination improves as the situation deteriorates," pointed out Dr. Vrax, a towering arthropoid whose clicking mandibles betrayed his agitation. "Most species show decreased function under extreme stress. Humans show the opposite." "Pattern." Mira cleared her throat. "In human military training, we call it rising to the occasion. It's considered a positive trait." The alien researchers exchanged troubled glances. "Let's review the data points," Dr. Zelthran said, bringing up a series of charts. "First, increased combat effectiveness when losing or outmatched. Second, frequent self-sacrifice behaviors to protect group members, even at certain death. Third, voluntary engagement in simulated combat for entertainment purposes. Don't forget the physical durability factors," added another researcher. "Humans sustain injuries that would incapacitate most species and continue fighting. Their pain response seems optional." Mira smiled faintly. "We call that adrenaline and stubbornness." "We call it deeply concerning," Dr. Vrax replied. The team spent months analyzing everything from human sports to historical battles, from childhood playground games to military training protocols. They interviewed human veterans, studied Earth entertainment, and even observed human children at play. With each new data point, their concern grew. In a secure communication to the Council's Military Advisory Board, Dr. Zelthran wrote, "Most concerning is the humans' complete lack of instinctive fear response to physically superior opponents. Where every other known sentient species has evolved appropriate caution toward larger predators, humans appear to view such encounters as challenges to overcome rather than dangers to avoid." To illustrate this point, the research team created a controlled experiment. They invited volunteers from various species, including 20 humans, to interact with a Dravaxian mountain beast, a creature standing 3 meters tall with razor-sharp claws and armored skin. The beast was securely restrained, but appeared uncontained. The results were telling. Representatives from every non-human species maintained maximum safe distance, showed appropriate fear responses, and many refused to enter the chamber altogether. The human reactions ranged from cautious curiosity to active interest, with several subjects attempting to move closer to examine the creature. 3 humans even expressed disappointment upon learning the beast was restrained. They wanted to see what would happen, Dr. Vrax reported, his voice trembling slightly. They weren't afraid. They were excited by the potential danger. The final report, classified at the highest level, ran to over 2,000 pages. Its executive summary contained one sentence that would be quoted in council deliberations for years to come. "Humans appear to be the only known species in the galaxy that becomes more dangerous when cornered." In a private conversation after the report's submission, Dr. Zelthran confessed his deeper worries to Mira. "What troubles me most isn't your species' capacity for violence. All species have that. It's how quickly you transition between states. Your people can be peaceful scientists and farmers one moment, then effective warriors the next, then return to peace as if the switch was merely flipped temporarily." Mira considered this. Is that really so strange? We adapt to our circumstances. "That's precisely what makes your kind so unsettling to the rest of us," the alien scientist replied. "For other species, warriors are warriors, scholars are scholars. The roles are fixed, the responses predictable. But humans," he gestured to the screen showing children playing a competitive game, their faces intense with concentration, Humans seemed to carry all possibilities within them simultaneously. The Council's classified response to the report was swift. Increased monitoring of all human military activities, restrictions on human settlement in disputed territories, and a quiet recommendation that advanced weapons technology not be shared with Earth's governments. Unknown to the researchers, their psychological assessment would later become the foundation for the most dramatic diplomatic action in the Alliance's history. Aliens stunned. The real reason. Humans were banned from BST. Galactic Wars revealed. Part 6. The Strategic Simulation Center of the Galactic Alliance hummed with activity. Massive quantum computers processed trillions of variables, while holographic displays showed star systems, fleets, and resource allocations shifting in real time. Fleet Admiral Zex Carr, a veteran of 3 actual wars and hundreds of simulated ones, watched with growing frustration as another simulation ended with unexpected results. "Impossible," he muttered, his scaled skin darkening with irritation. "Run it again." His technical officer, a slender Valarian whose 6 eyes blinked nervously, adjusted the parameters. "This is the 12th run, Admiral. The humans keep achieving victory despite a 40% resource disadvantage. The Alliance had created these war games to assess potential threats. For decades, they'd used simulations to evaluate species, predict conflicts, and develop countermeasures. The system had never failed, until now. At the heart of the problem was Lieutenant Aisha Patel, an unassuming human military observer who had been invited to participate in what she'd been told were routine strategic exercises. When given command of a simulated fleet facing overwhelming odds, rather than accepting the inevitable defeat, she had systematically exploited gaps in the simulation's programming. "She's treating our strategic simulation like what humans call a video game," complained senior analyst Vixtrell. "Finding programming limitations and exploiting them rather than engaging in proper military doctrine." In one scenario, Aisha had ordered her simulated ships to execute maneuvers the program classified as suicidal, flying directly into the gravity wells of gas giants to slingshot at impossible speeds, using the limitations of the physics engine against the pursuing enemies. In another, she discovered that the simulation counted destroyed ships as complete losses, but didn't track salvageable materials, allowing her to cannibalize her own damaged vessels to create makeshift weapons platforms. After 2 weeks of frustrating results, Admiral Zexakar took an unprecedented step. He requested access to ORA Keeley, the Alliance's most advanced strategic artificial intelligence, a system so powerful it was usually reserved for real-world conflicts threatening multiple core worlds. "We need to create a scenario these humans cannot win," he explained to the High Council. "Something that will demonstrate the natural limitations of their unusual approach." Permission was reluctantly granted. For 3 days, ORACLE absorbed every piece of data available on human military history, psychology, and tactics. It analyzed the previous simulations, studying Aisha's decisions and those of the 4 other human observers who had subsequently been invited to participate. When the new simulation was finally ready, Aisha found herself facing a scenario specifically designed to counter every human tactic observed so far. Her resources were minimal, her enemies adaptive, and the rules of engagement shifted dynamically to close exploits as soon as they appeared. "Good luck with this one," smirked a junior Zarlaxian officer as the simulation began. "Oracle designed it specifically against your species' tricks." 12 hours later, the observation room was silent as the simulation once again ended with a human victory. This time, Aisha had abandoned military objectives entirely, instead focusing on political destabilization of her opponent's alliance structure. She'd sacrificed fleets to create refugee crises, leaked intelligence selectively to create distrust between enemy factions, and deliberately allowed civilian casualties that would trigger uprisings on key worlds. It wasn't just that. She'd won, it was how she'd won. By changing the nature of the conflict itself, Admiral Zexakar stared at the results, then at the human woman who looked physically exhausted, but satisfied. "That was not proper warfare," he finally said. Isha shrugged. "You asked me to win. With the resources available, I did. The next day, ORACLE delivered its final assessment to a closed session of the High Council. The AI's conclusions stunned everyone present. Human strategic approach cannot be reliably countered within standard military parameters. They do not recognize the implicit rules of warfare that have stabilized galactic conflict for millennia. Their cognitive warfare methodology, wherein the objective is to change the opponent's perception rather than destroy their capacity, introduces incalculable variables into any conflict simulation. Most shocking was ORACLE's recommended course of action. The most effective countermeasure is prevention. Humans should be excluded from all military conflicts between established galactic powers, as their participation destabilizes predictable outcomes and invalidates established doctrine. In simpler terms, don't let them play the game if you wish the rules to remain intact. 3 days later, the first draft of the Human Military Exclusion Act was quietly circulated among council members. The path to humanity's ban from galactic warfare had begun, not because humans couldn't be defeated, but because they refused to be defeated in the expected ways. Aliens stunned. The real reason. Humans were banned from galactic wars revealed. Part 7. The private chamber of the Galactic Council's inner circle was rarely used, its very existence known only to a handful of beings across the galaxy. Ancient wood panels from a dozen extinct worlds lined the walls. No recording devices, no assistants, no observers, just the 7 most powerful individuals in known space, gathered around a table older than most civilizations. "The public thinks we banned humans because they're dangerous," began first speaker. Ziliax, her crystalline form catching the light. "That's not entirely accurate. Many species are dangerous. We banned them because they're unpredictable," added Trade Minister Kurox, his massive tentacles carefully arranged around his hover chair. "And because they refuse to follow the rules." "No," Fleet Commander Drax corrected, leaning forward. "We banned them because they don't even see the rules. That's the critical distinction." A hologram appeared above the table, footage from the Thracian conflict. Human mercenaries using mining ships as weapons, improvised explosives deployed in asteroid fields, communication systems repurposed as electronic warfare platforms. "Look at this," Drax pointed. "Every spacefaring species in the Alliance evolved with certain innate understandings about warfare, protective instincts toward civilian populations, respect for technological superiority, clear chain of command structures. These aren't just cultural, they're biological imperatives written into our very genes." Intelligence Director Thella, her feathered crest rippling with agitation, pulled up her own files. "We've studied human history extensively. Their entire military evolution is anomalous. Most species developed war castes, specialized warriors who fought according to strict protocols, while civilians remained uninvolved. Humans developed professional armies relatively late in their development. Before that," she continued, "they expected every member of society to become a warrior when needed. Their concept of militia, or levy en masse, the idea that shopkeepers and farmers would spontaneously organize for combat, is virtually unique in galactic history." The economic minister, Voltar Six Minds, chimed in with his harmonious voice. "Their resource allocation during conflicts defies rational modeling. They willingly accept tremendous economic damage if it achieves military objectives. No other species voluntarily reduces its standard of living to win conflicts." "But the most alarming factor," said Security Coordinator Ixthalan, "is what we've termed tactical creativity, their ability to improvise and adapt military strategies in real time at all levels of command." The hologram shifted to show footage from a minor border skirmish, where a human transport pilot, cut off from communication with his commanders, had reprogrammed his vessel's atmospheric shields to create an electromagnetic pulse that disabled pursuing ships. In any other species, this behavior would be aberrant. One individual in millions might attempt such improvisation. In humans, it appears to be the norm. They expect it from each other. First speaker Ziliax gestured, bringing up the final report from the Xenopsychology Division. "Most concerning is their response to technological superiority. Every other known species evolved the instinctive deference to more advanced technology, a survival mechanism to prevent hopeless confrontations with superior forces. Humans not only lack this instinct, added Ixthalan, they actively resist it. When faced with superior technology, they become more determined, not less. They see it as a puzzle to solve, rather than a signal to submit. The medical overseer, Dr. Quell, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. It stems from their evolutionary path. Most sentient species evolved as prey that eventually developed tools to become predators. Humans were apex predators from the start who developed tools to become more efficient predators. They never learned the caution that comes from being hunted. The room fell silent as they considered the implications. So we didn't ban them because they're too dangerous, mused Fleet Commander Drax. We banned them because they don't play by the unwritten rules that make galactic warfare predictable and controllable. Precisely, nodded First Speaker Ziliax. Other species fight wars according to established patterns, like a complex dance where everyone knows the steps. Humans don't just dance poorly, they insist on improvising new steps altogether. It's not just that they ignore the rules of warfare, concluded Intelligence Director Thella softly. It's that they don't even perceive them as rules. To a human, there is no proper way to fight. There's only winning or losing. The medical overseer added the final chilling observation. And for humans, even losing is just a temporary state until they find a new approach. They never truly accept defeat. The 7 leaders sat in contemplative silence, each considering the implications for galactic security. The humans' ban from warfare wasn't just a practical measure. It was an acknowledgement that their very approach to conflict represented an evolutionary path the rest of the galaxy had never encountered before. The secret weapon humans possessed wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their fundamental inability to accept limitations, especially those imposed by others. Aliens stunned. The real reason. Humans were banned from galactic wars revealed. Part 8 Ambassador Tom Reed had spent weeks trying to understand the true reasons behind humanity's military ban. His diplomatic protests were met with vague references to safety concerns and cultural incompatibilities. None of it made sense until the night his office door chimed at an hour when the council chambers should have been empty. "Enter," he called, surprised. The door slid open to reveal Vix Nara, a mid-level Jexari diplomat he'd spoken with occasionally. Her iridescent scales shimmered with nervous energy. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered, glancing down the hallway. "But you deserve to know the truth." She placed a small data crystal on his desk. "This contains classified council security footage. Watch it alone." Before Tom could ask questions, she was gone. The footage showed a heated argument in a secure council chamber. The normally composed Pelthari representative, Minister Zax, was gesturing wildly at Fleet Admiral Krovak. "Your own battle group has adopted human tactics," Zax accused. "Dispersed command structures, independent action by subcommanders, improvised weaponry. These are all human influences." The Admiral's skin flushed a deep purple. "We adapt to survive. The Pelthari forces have grown complacent, relying on overwhelming numbers rather than what?" Zax interrupted. "Innovation, unpredictability. These are human concepts that threaten millennia of stable military doctrine." Security Chief Drex stepped between them. "Both of you, enough. This is precisely why the ban was implemented. The infection has already begun." Tom froze the footage. Infection. He played it again, this time watching the faces of the other council members. They weren't just concerned, they were terrified. He skipped ahead to another meeting, this one featuring representatives. From the Thracian Empire, a military officer was presenting evidence of disturbing developments among their traditional enemies, the Novan Collective. "They've reorganized their fleet structure," the officer explained, pointing to tactical displays. "Abandoned their ceremonial approach to ship design. Started deploying unmanned combat vessels as shields for their capital ships. All tactics they observed from the human mercenaries." "And your response?" asked a council member. "We've adapted similarly," admitted the Thracian reluctantly. "We had no choice." Tom spent the entire night reviewing the files. The pattern became clear. 3 species who had fought alongside humans, the Thracians, the Krell Confederacy, and the Valerian Republic, had begun fundamentally changing their military approaches. They developed new technologies based on casual human suggestions, reorganized their command structures to allow greater autonomy, and most alarmingly, started questioning military traditions dating back thousands of years. The next file made Tom's blood run cold. It was a simulation showing the potential spread of human military thinking across the galaxy over the next century. The projection showed increasing instability, the breakdown of traditional power balances, and eventually the possibility of conflicts between species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia. The final recording was from a closed council session. High Chancellor Zextur addressed the gathered representatives with unusual bluntness. "Let us speak plainly," the Chancellor said. "Humans aren't being banned because they themselves pose a direct threat. Their numbers are too few, their technology too limited. They're being banned because they're teachers, because their approach to warfare is contagious." The room erupted in nervous murmurs. The human concept of innovation, of constantly seeking new advantages rather than perfecting established methods, fundamentally destabilizes our military equilibrium. For millennia, our conflicts have followed predictable patterns, allowing for managed warfare that preserves the greater peace. A Drell representative raised a tentacle. "But surely other species can be trusted to maintain traditional—" "They cannot," interrupted the Chancellor. "We have evidence that the Krell have already deployed unmanned attack craft based on human designs. The Valerians have reorganized their command structure to allow battlefield improvisation. The Thracians have abandoned ceremonial ship configurations for pure functionality. The infection is spreading." The word infection again, Tom noted. "Worst of all," continued Zextur, "is the psychological impact. Species who observe human military thinking begin to question everything. Why do we announce our attacks? Why do we maintain symbolic weapons that serve no practical purpose? Why do we adhere to battle formations established 10,000 years ago? Once these questions begin, traditional military discipline crumbles." Tom shut off the recording, finally understanding. Humans weren't banned because they were dangerous fighters. They were banned because they asked, why? The most dangerous question in warfare. The next morning, Tom requested an emergency meeting with Earth's Defense Council. His message was simple but urgent. They're not afraid of our weapons. They're afraid of our ideas. The true revelation wasn't that humans had been excluded from galactic conflicts. It was that human thinking had already begun to transform warfare across the stars, whether the Council approved or not. Aliens stunned. The real reason humans were banned from galactic wars revealed. Part 9, 6 months after the official ban took effect. A nondescript transport ship docked at the orbital station above Krell Prime. Among its passengers was Dr. Rohan Sharma, officially registered as a cultural exchange specialist from Earth. His actual expertise, small unit tactics and asymmetric warfare, wasn't mentioned in any documents. As he passed through customs, a Krell security officer made brief eye contact, then deliberately looked away. Both knew why he was really here. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out daily. On the Thracian homeworld, former Marine Corps Captain Lena Novak presented a historical lecture to senior military staff that conveniently covered Earth's most innovative guerrilla campaigns. In the Valerian Republic, retired naval strategist Thomas Chen helped upgrade civilian defense protocols that looked remarkably like advanced fleet tactics. None of this was accidental. Back on Earth, in a repurposed military base outside Geneva, the newly formed Diplomatic Defense Consulting Corps was coordinating the largest unofficial military advisory operation in human history. "The ban has created perfect market conditions," explained Director Kamala Patel to Earth's United Defense Council. "Before, we were just one voice among many. Now, we're forbidden knowledge, and nothing is more tempting than that." The DDCC headquarters buzzed with activity. Officially, it provided peacekeeping training and defensive protocols to allied species. In reality, it was systematically spreading human military thinking throughout the galaxy. Retired military personnel from dozens of Earth nations found themselves recruited as highly paid consultants. to alien forces eager to gain the human edge. It's not technically violating the ban, argued Earth's legal team. We're not participating in conflicts. We're just teaching theoretical concepts. The Council wasn't fooled. In a closed emergency session, Security Director Ix Tharlan presented disturbing evidence. The humans have turned our ban into an opportunity, he explained, displaying images of suspected human advisors on various worlds. By declaring their military expertise off-limits, we've only increased its value. Species that would never have sought human guidance are now doing so covertly. High Chancellor Zex Tuur's skin paled. Can we extend the ban to include advisory roles? Too late, replied the intelligence director. The infection has spread too far. 3 more species have reorganized their forces along human lines. The Drell hegemony has abandoned their ceremonial battle challenges entirely. The Vaklar Dominion has introduced the concept of reserve forces, civilian populations trained for emergency military service. These are fundamental shifts in military doctrine that have remained unchanged for thousands of years. On the frontier world of Halcyon 9, a tense standoff between Thracian and Novan forces was reaching its peak. Both sides had deployed newly reorganized fleets, featuring innovations clearly inspired by human thinking. Unmanned scout vessels, dispersed command structures, electronic warfare capabilities. Observing from a distance, Council peacekeeping forces watched with growing horror as centuries of predictable conflict patterns gave way to something new and unpredictable. This isn't how war is supposed to be conducted, murmured the Peloran commander. Where are the formal declarations, the ritual deployments, the symbolic first volleys? In their place was something ruthlessly efficient, ships positioned for tactical advantage rather than ceremonial impact, weapons designed purely for effectiveness rather than traditional significance. Back on Earth, the DDCC continued to expand. A new wing opened specifically to assist species interested in developing joint service operations, a concept alien to civilizations where different combat branches rarely coordinated. Another department specialized in helping allies create military research divisions focused on continuous innovation rather than perfecting existing technologies. 2 years after the ban, the Council finally admitted defeat in a private session. We cannot stop this, conceded Chancellor Zex Tuur. By trying to contain human military thinking, we've only ensured its spread. We must adapt to the new reality. That new reality was becoming clear. The military balance that had kept relative peace for millennia was transforming. Species that adopted human approaches gained advantages over those that didn't, creating pressure for universal adoption. The old ways were dying, replaced by a more fluid, unpredictable, and ultimately more dangerous form of warfare. On the Krell homeworld, after a successful joint exercise using new tactics, Fleet Commander Vrax Dool sat with his human advisor in the quiet of his private chambers. There's something I don't understand, the alien admitted. How did your species develop such effective approaches to warfare? Your technology was primitive compared to ours. Your resources limited, yet your thinking about conflict is revolutionary. Dr. Rohan Sharma looked out at the unfamiliar stars and considered his answer carefully. While every other species in the galaxy was busy fighting aliens, he said finally, we were fighting ourselves. For thousands of years, humans have been our own worst enemies, constantly trying to outsmart opponents who thought exactly like we did. We never had the luxury of predictable enemies following established rules. He turned back to the alien commander, his expression somber. In a strange way, our greatest weakness became our greatest strength. Our endless internal conflicts forced us to innovate constantly, to think beyond tradition, to find advantages wherever they existed. We had to become unpredictable because we were fighting against minds that could anticipate traditional approaches. The alien commander's eyes widened slightly as understanding dawned. The rest of the galaxy, Sharma concluded quietly, is only just catching up to where we've been for millennia. As the human spoke, countless similar conversations were happening across the stars, forever changing the nature of galactic warfare. Exactly what the Council had feared most. The ban hadn't contained humanity's influence. It had ensured it.